name is Harriet, and I'm a cardiologist from the University of Leiden. And I'm so happy to be here. And I'm so happy to be here because I am becoming a role model. I've reached the top and I'm becoming a role model to empower the young generation that they can become their dreams, no matter what obstacles they face. Yes, they can become their dreams. I do believe it.
Hello everybody, my name is Ibtisam Abazes. I stand here before you as a Muslim woman activist. In my ongoing battle to raise awareness about the poison called Islamophobia, my friends and I founded the National Institute called Meld Islamophobie. In the footsteps of many iconic activists, I am becoming a woman that is determined to make a difference in this society.
Hello, Amsterdam. I'm Laura Ferguson. I'm a blue-collar kid from New York, and I call New Orleans home these days, and go Saints. An amazing work opportunity brings me here to the beautiful city of Amsterdam, and I am becoming an example for the next generation of modern, adventurous women, especially my 5, soon to be 6, little nieces back home.
Good evening, Amsterdam. My name is Menno, and I am a proud boyfriend. A beloved son in many ways, a caring brother and uncle. I am becoming a man who's getting stronger and stronger, not by thinking who I'm supposed to be, but by embracing myself who I am. Just me, Menno.
Good evening, Amsterdam. My name is Melissa Lopez. I'm 22, and I'm a music ambassador of Music Matters. And I'm becoming a woman and a musician that will inspire every creator and every musician to become what they want to be. Just like I was inspired by all the artists in Rotterdam, in Amsterdam, everywhere, to find my own voice and my own path.
Journalist, author, and former CNN news anchor, Aisha Sasay.
Good evening, Amsterdam. I am Aisha Sasay, and I am becoming fearless. I am beyond thrilled, beyond, there are no words to encapsulate how special it is to be here with you tonight, hosting Michelle Obama's Becoming Tour in Amsterdam. I promise you, take it from me, this is going to be an unforgettable evening. She is one of the most remarkable and glamorous women in the world. Crisscrossing, yes, she is. Crisscrossing the globe and inspiring millions everywhere she goes. But Michelle Obama's start in life was far simpler. Take a look.
As I end my time in the White House, I can think of no better message to send to our young people.
In owning your unique story, in using your authentic voice. And there's grace in being willing to know and hear others. This, for me, is how we become.
Amsterdam, make much more noise than they did in Paris last night. Stomp your feet, raise your voices, and welcome Michelle Obama. Wow. It's electric. Take it away. Okay, so I should say you may see some confetti falling from the roof, but I believe Drake was in the house last night.
Wait till I tell my daughters I'm following Drake. That's all they'll care about. It's like, did you meet him?
No. How does it feel to have written a book that is on track to being the biggest selling memoir of all time?
It's crazy. It was not something that I expected. When I set out to write this book, part of it was an assignment because all first ladies generally write some account of their time in the White House. But I wanted the book to be more than just the 8 years of the White House because I felt like a book that talked about me had to comprise that journey, the whole story, because you don't really understand Michelle Obama if you don't understand who that little girl, Michelle Robinson, was. So I felt sharing that was just as important. So the fact that people around the world are responding to it, to me, yeah, that has a little bit to do with me, but it has a lot to do with the fact that if people can see themselves around the world in this story, the truth is that we're not that far apart as people on this planet because we're all finding our own paths to becoming. And so more than breaking records, that for me gives me solace, and it should give all of us a sense of hope that we're all looking to find each other out there, and we can do it if we become vulnerable and share our stories.
Where they're predominantly male, they're predominantly white, and there you were with a little bit of self-doubt already walking in and not being sure whether you belonged. And there are going to be a lot of people in here, people of color, people of lower economic means who find themselves in those rooms, in those places, and they feel other.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? What do you say to them from your experience?
Yeah. Well, sadly, it's another burden, you know. You're already in college, you're already in a competitive university, you're already in a workplace where you're the only one, you're already, you know, you got to do that job with that burden of doubt, not just from others, which is always there, but within yourself. It makes the work harder, but that's one of the reasons why I point it out, because I think you have to own it first. You have to know it's there. For me at Princeton was the beginning of my salvation. And I think I, in hindsight, I needed to go to Princeton to see for myself what was the best of the best. What was this all about? What was all this that I wasn't good enough for? Let me see, because maybe they're right. You know, maybe I'd get there and just be wiped up on the bottom of somebody's shoe. Maybe I'd be just drowning in my own overachievement. So I thought, let me know. But then you go to these places, these fancy universities with exclusivity, you go to these high-paying jobs, you sit at these high-powered seats, and guess who's there? A bunch of regular folks. You know, and let me be clear, people who succeed work hard. But this notion that there are some who belong and some don't, that is utter nonsense, as I found, because there are all kinds of affirmative action that happens. It's a word that's become a dirty word in the United States, affirmative action.
And associated with people of color.
Exactly. It's associated with people of color like me who don't belong, but the standards are, they're fudged a bit to let us in, to create the diversity that is needed by all. And I was like, okay, so that's what every other kid looks at a black kid or a brown kid or a woman and says, maybe you don't belong here because the rules were bent for you. Only for me to find out that, oh, there's all kinds of affirmative actions in elite places. They're bending rules all over the place. People who get in because their parents and grandparents have been going to these schools for years. People who are athletes. They need musicians. They need all kinds of people. And here's the truth of it, is that in order for universities and places of work to be vibrant and thriving and representative, yes, it requires a whole bunch of people who look a certain way, not just somebody who scored a certain way on a test. That only measures one thing in a person. So I believe in the power of affirmative action and diversity of all kinds, because there's no one way to have a vibrant and important conversation. The thing that gets me is that we think one form of diversity is more, or one form of affirmative action is more legitimate than another. And I want kids of all kinds out there, women and kids of color and working class kids, to understand that it's all a scam. That notion, that doubt that they try to put in your brain, that you somehow can't sit at the most powerful seats and compete. Because a lot of people were given those seats. A lot of people didn't earn those seats. Some seats were purchased. Some were passed down through legacy. And that's fine. That is fine. There's no crime in that. It's just that I want these young people to understand you belong there. And that's what I learned at Princeton. Not only did I get into Princeton, but I thrived at Princeton. I was a top student at Princeton, and there was a lot that I lacked. I went to public school where I was not as prepared as some kids who had gone to more expensive prep schools, but what I understood is that yes, I needed to work twice as hard once again to catch up. But once I did and caught up, it was empowering for me to understand that I belonged at those seats of power, at those elite tables, and I'm coming down on high to tell all kids all over the world that you belong there too. Do not let somebody set your bar lower than you think it should be for you. It is not true. Crazy. You know, he was intelligent and smart, and quite honestly, because I was so used to white people underestimating black people, right? Thinking a black person who could put together a sentence was somehow brilliant. You know, I was skeptical. I was like, well, let me be the judge of just how fabulous this guy is. He might just be able to talk straight, you know? And they're like, oh, he speaks, you know? So I was skeptical.
And he was late.
And he was late.
And he was
And then I thought, black guys, we can't be late as black people. We can't do this. But at the same time, I was impressed by how unimpressed he was about sort of the norms of the firm. He was like, oh man, I'm sorry, I was late. I didn't have access to an adequate umbrella. I was blah, blah. I was
Does
like,
he know you do this impression of him?
Yeah, I don't do it to his face a lot. So he's in another part of the world, so don't tell him about this.
So don't post it.
Don't post it, right? But yeah, I was also impressed by, you know, his attitude. He didn't come in like, I'm here just to make an impression. You know, I just have to do everything right. He was like, look, you know, I think I may want to do law. This seemed like an interesting offer. And so I'm here, and yeah, I'm a little late, but I'm gonna work hard. And I thought, okay, look at you, Mr. Confident, you know? And then he had that walk, and he
Yes.
he wasn't rushing, he was still walking kind of slowly. It's like, follow me. And then, ladies, he was cute. He was very cute. And I was like, oh, I didn't expect this. This is not how your photo looked. You look quite handsome. He had far more flavor than I anticipated, which, for those of you who don't understand flavor, that's a good thing.
So you played it cool. You're like, no, I'm his advisor. This could possibly happen. I'm not
Another box checking attitude. It's
not
like,
doing
no,
this.
this won't look good on my
Deeply
box checking.
inappropriate. Like, put it down. You played it cool, but the feelings came, and then one day, with ice creams in hand, and let me quote you now. Can I kiss you? He asked. And with that, I leaned in, and everything felt clear.
Oh.
Yeah. And what did he bring to your life? What did that kiss do? What did it open up in your life?
Well, it began far before that because I was sort of holding him off. We had months to become friends. And I just became more and more intrigued by him. You know, our first conversation, even in that first lunch, we had lunch for 2 hours because I found him to be so incredibly unlike anybody I'd ever known. You know, his upbringing in faraway places, his ability to speak other languages, his Hawaiian attitude.
But then he pulled out a cigarette.
Oh yeah, but he smoked, and I always tell him, I love you because I thought, why are you smoking? You know about the tobacco and da-da-da, but it was a habit that he started, so it was unattractive, and eventually he would stop. But he was smart and funny and self-deprecating. I knew then that he was thinking about life in a bigger way than I had ever did. I was too busy checking boxes, and he was thinking about how to be in the world, who to be in the world in a way that I had not yet done. And I knew that this guy was going to do great things. I never thought politics at all. But he was the first person I knew who had been a community organizer, who was doing something with their degree other than trying to just make money or just achieve. I mean, he really felt that he had a mission and a passion. And then when I saw him, I talk about this first time I think I really fell in love with him, is that he invited me to one of his trainings on the far South Side where he worked with working class and single parent mothers, trying to help them improve their neighborhood. And just watching him turn from this Harvard student, law clerk, to this teacher and empowering figure was amazing to watch. And he had a gift, and he had a gift to connect. Even though he was from a whole different upbringing, he understood what was going on. You knew he had put the work in. And it was that part of him, the part of him that was a loving mother to a very loving son to a very independent mother. I love the way he talked about his grandmother. And I share this, because I think sometimes we as women look for the check boxes when we're looking for a mate, right job, right career, right this, right that. Everything on Barack's checklist was all off. It was all crooked and bendy
all
and twisty
all over
and
the place.
But wow, when he proposed and as we started building our lives together, he said, I can't promise you much by the way of things, but I know I can promise you an interesting life.
Wow.
And I was like, well, here he is. Yeah, he did. So I fell in love with all of that, and I fell hard. We were talking about marriage by the end of the summer, even though we didn't get engaged. Fortunately, he finished law school. We continued to date, continued to know one another. But I knew that right away that this was the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And I never was that girl. I was too much I never thought I'd just fall head over heels in love with another person in that way.
But you did.
But Barack was an unexpected addition to my list.
And so before the marriage came, I remember remember where I was in Arizona covering it for CNN that night. I was in the wrong place. And I was like, man, I'm missing the party. I'm in Arizona. But I remember thinking about you when you all came out on stage, thinking, what was the predominant emotion, these pictures here at Grant Park? Was it fear? Was it excitement? Was it incredulity? I mean, it was Malia who said, no one's coming to Daddy's party.
Yeah, it was a little out of body for all of us. Because the primary process in the United States is long. It's a 2-year process. With month after month of local primaries. And so you're gearing up for election after election after election for a good year, which means there's a victory or a loss, a celebration, a speech, balloons fall down, you move on to the next state. And our kids had sort of been through that. And we tried to make the process of campaigning very kid-friendly, which is why our kids love campaigning. It meant they had ice cream. And when I listened to that, I was like, yeah, they got a lot of ice cream. Because every time there was a stop, our campaign got used to making it all family-friendly. So there was the campaign, the work, but the kids always got to go off and see the local site and go to a fair and get their face painted. I talk about the time that Malia, Sasha, and my mom had a big people photo cover shoot, right? We were going to New Hampshire, and they were off at some fair. I had to give some speeches. We were coming back to take the photo. The kids went and got their face painted, and the volunteer young person with me said, is it okay for them to get their face painted? And I said, okay. That should be okay. I'm thinking a little daisy, a little butterfly, maybe a flag. Sasha decided she wanted to be a panda. Not a panda. She had a big white face with big black eyes and a pretty red dress with white on it. And I come back off the stage, and we're about to take the photo, and I go, oh, you're a panda. And she was really so proud, I'm a panda. So we had to clean her up for the shot. That was what their lives were like. She could be a panda, and she could play cards, and they met people all over the place. So by the time election night rolled around, I had to explain to her that this party meant something, because the other parties meant nothing. It's like, is Dad president? Nope, not yet. When's he gonna be president? I'll let you know. We got a lot of these to go. So that night they were off playing when we were in the hotel waiting for the returns, and we had to actually call them in from playing with their other friends and cousins, and you see how excited they look to be called in, because I'm certain they're thinking, they're chicken nuggets in the back, and how long do we have to sit here?
When is this over?
When is this over? And that's when it was announced that he was the president-elect, and immediately your life changes because the security situation changes. Going from being a candidate to president-elect is a pretty weighty kind of thing from a security standpoint. When we left that hotel, we left in a presidential motorcade. Wow. And a presidential motorcade, for requirements everywhere it goes, it means everything is shut down. No cars can go on the streets, lights and sirens, everything. There's 6 motorcycle leads, 10, 20 cars, an ambulance that's carrying your husband's blood type around, and you realize those are the dangers. Men with cat suits and machine guns hanging out of the window, because the presidential motorcade is a force. It's intended to intimidate. It's not a silent, quiet thing. They're not hiding. They're essentially saying, don't mess with the person in this car. And that's what we're riding to Grant Park in for the celebration. So it is deadly silent in the streets of Chicago, and it's also an odd night because it is November and it's almost 70 degrees, which in Chicago is crazy warm. But there are hundreds of thousands of people at Grant Park. They're already stationed, so we're riding silently because you're taking all this stuff in and still trying to pretend like everything is okay for your kids. And that's when we were riding quietly down this empty street that Malia leaned over and said, Dad, I don't think anybody's coming to your party. So, and it's like, Oh yeah, that's right. Your life is changing forever. How do I explain to a child that this is now it? This is how daddy shows up to parent-teacher conferences with men with guns. You are going to have men with guns. Where do you begin?
Where do you begin?
Where do you begin?
Where did you begin?
Just day by day, you know, first getting them into a school. Just a reminder that you're connecting with my story and you're connecting with my vulnerability. And that's the opposite of what we're taught. We're taught to hide ourselves, particularly women and people of color, people who feel marginalized, people who aren't wealthy, who don't have status, people who are working hard every day, who feel unseen. Because the truth is that we don't all hear our stories told in a profound way, and in that way that creates a level of invisibility. So we hide ourselves. But I think that the opposite is true, that if we can open up a little bit more to each other and share our stories, our real stories, you know, our pain and our triumphs, our hopes and our joys, in the little journeys that we all take, that's what breaks down barriers. That's what people are connecting with. They're connecting with me because I told the story, but it's the story that's the power. But in order to do that, you first have to believe that your story has value. And we all don't believe that. Most of us don't. Most of us think that there's one way to be human, that there's one way to be right. We've got people killing and fighting and dying over this one notion that there's one way to be human, one way to pray, one way to love, one way to look. And that's so far from the truth of how we've been created. So we have to feel good about ourselves to tap into our own stories in order to share it. We need more stories out there of how to be human, not fewer. We need to expand the possibility of what it means to be human, not narrow it down to just a few races and genders who can do anything in the world. But in order for that to happen, we have to tell our stories. And it doesn't have to be told in some biography that's going to be published. You can tell it to yourself, tell it to your children, tell it to your neighbors, your colleagues, your coworkers. Be vulnerable, dare to be vulnerable. And that, for me, as I said, is how we find voice and how we find strength and how we become. So my hope for everybody here, anybody who hears my voice, who hears my corny jokes and my off-colored stuff, takes away that this isn't about Michelle Obama. This is about us all. So don't be afraid to open up, because people will welcome you in ways that they won't, and if they don't, there's a lesson in that too. So be brave and be hopeful, because we owe it to the next generation. We owe it to our young people to be hopeful and optimistic, engaged in the process of constantly growing and changing. We can all do this together. Amsterdam, thank you so much.